April 22nd, 2024. A peaceful morning in Yukon, Oklahoma. A 10-year-old boy steps out of his bedroom. The front door is open. The house is eerily quiet. On the floor, dried bloodstains. His family. No one is answering. Minutes later, a trembling call comes through to 911. I think, my parents and brothers are dead. Police arrive within minutes. They enter a well-kept suburban home, but what they find leaves them stunned. 5 bodies, a handgun, and one lone surviving child. The man responsible? Jonathon Candy, the very person everyone believed to be a loving father and devoted husband. Just 18 months earlier, he appeared on local TV, smiling beside his wife, joking about how the name Candy was perfect for a carrot cake segment. No one knew that not long after, he would become the center of one of the most brutal family massacres in Oklahoma history. Before diving into the grim details of the case, we need to understand who were the Candy family. They weren't just an average family. For years, the name Candy had been synonymous with the image of the ideal American household. From the outside looking in, they had it all. A loving couple, 4 bright and energetic sons, and a cozy home nestled in a quiet neighborhood in Yukon, Oklahoma. Family photos showed smiles filled with joy. Weekend trips, school events, and dinners where everyone gathered around the table. Friends and neighbors would often say, they were the kind of family you only see in commercials or feel-good TV shows. Jonathon Candy, 42, was a cheerful and well-liked man. Nearly everyone in Yukon knew him. He worked part-time at the Paycom Center, a venue that hosted major events like concerts, NBA games, and other sports shows. Although not a full-time employee, Jonathon always brought good energy. His coworkers said he could make the whole arena laugh with just one story. Jonathon attended Bishop McGuinness Catholic High School. After graduation, he married his high school sweetheart, Lindsay Terry. Lindsay was a smart, funny woman who grew up in Prague, Oklahoma. From a young age, she stood out with her sweet singing voice in the church choir and a laugh that never seemed to fade. Everyone used to say Lindsay could light up an entire room with her smile. When she met Jonathon, the funny guy who loved telling jokes, it was like something out of a movie. He made her laugh, and she made him feel loved. They quickly became the couple everyone admired. Over time, they had 4 sons together: Dylan, Ethan, Lucas, and their youngest, just 10 years old. From the outside, the Candy family seemed like the picture of happiness. On social media, they shared birthday parties, vacations, and moments full of laughter. Jonathon often said, "I'm the luckiest man in the world." He was proud of his kids and always said they were his entire world. That's why no one could have imagined ... What happened next? Morning of April 22nd, 2024. The youngest son of the Candy family woke up like it was any other day. The soft hum of a box fan buzzed beside his bed, blowing steady gusts of air, perhaps the very thing that masked the terrifying sounds of the night before. He vaguely remembered hearing the fire alarm go off sometime after midnight, but since there were no screams, he drifted back to sleep. Around 9 a.m., the boy opened his bedroom door, expecting to hear his parents calling him down for breakfast. But there was only silence, a chilling, unnatural silence. And then he saw it. Blood everywhere. Lying motionless on the floor were his mother, Lindsay, and his 3 brothers: Dylan, 18, Ethan, 14, and Lucas, 12. All of them had been shot. All of them were gone. In a state of panic, yet with an eerie calm, the 10-year-old boy called 911. A trembling voice came through the phone. "I think my parents and brothers are dead." Just minutes later, police and first responders flooded the home on Southwest 29th and Chuck Hall Road. Neighbors gathered outside, stunned and confused, watching as police cruisers and ambulances filled the quiet street. No one understood what was happening. They couldn't have imagined that the entire Candy family had been murdered right next door in their peaceful neighborhood. When officers stepped into the Candy home, they walked straight into a living nightmare. One quick glance at the scene told them everything. This was a murder-suicide. Jonathon Candy, the father, had shot and killed his wife and 3 of his sons, then turned the gun on himself. But one detail left everyone in shock. One child had been spared. The youngest son, just 10 years old, was still alive. Why would a father who once proudly said his children were his entire world do something so horrific? And why spare the youngest? Was it love or a haunting message left behind? No one had the answers, only questions, and a horror that will never fade. In an interview with Oklahoma authorities, officials admitted what they saw inside the home was even more horrifying than what the media had reported. 2 bodies were found upstairs, 2 more downstairs. But what truly disturbed investigators wasn't the number of victims, it was the silence. There were no signs of struggle, no overturned furniture, no blood trails suggesting someone tried to run. Everything pointed to one chilling truth. The victims were completely caught off guard. No chance to react, no chance to scream for help. And that's what makes this case more baffling than nearly any other family massacre before it. Usually, when someone decides to kill their entire family and take their own life, they don't leave survivors. But Jonathon Candy did. He spared one person, his youngest son, just 10 years old. Why? In those final moments, did he regain clarity? Was there something unique between father and son that not even psychologists can explain? Or did he simply not have the courage to finish what he started? Sadly, we may never have a clear answer to these haunting questions. Jonathon Candy is dead. His wife and 3 sons are too. Only one remains, a 10-year-old boy, the sole survivor. The family is doing everything they can to protect him. They've asked authorities not to question or involve him in any further investigations, at least not right now, because no one, no child, should ever have to endure what he witnessed. Dr. Joni Johnston, a renowned forensic psychologist, has been involved in the case. In a press conference, she shared, "In all my decades in this field, I've never seen a case like this. A father kills his wife and 3 children, but leaves one alive. That's a decision? That's both puzzling and deeply emotional." And then she asked the one question everyone's been thinking. What made Jonathon pull the trigger 3 times? But not the 4th. No one saw it coming. Friends, neighbors, everyone said Jonathon seemed completely normal in the days leading up to the tragedy. No strange behavior, no signs of distress. In fact, just the night before the murders, he was seen laughing and having a great time at the Thunder versus Pelicans playoff game. His coworkers said he was still Jonathon, friendly, funny, easy to talk to. If he was struggling with something, he hid it exceptionally well. There were no domestic violence records, no 911 calls, no screams, no witnesses to anything out of the ordinary. Everyone thought the Candy family was happy, and that is what makes it so terrifying. No warning signs, no red flags, no chance to stop what was coming. In just a matter of hours, a family of 6 was reduced to 1, and the only thing police know for certain, something happened that night. Maybe it was an argument. Maybe it was a sudden explosion. No one knows exactly what triggered the tragedy, but investigators believe the conflict between Jonathon and Lindsay may have been the spark. A heartbreaking theory is now being considered. Jonathon may have killed his wife in a moment of rage. No plan, no premeditation, just a violent outburst. And when that moment passed, he panicked. In his shattered mind, he may have thought, The kids can't live knowing what I've done. Instead of calling 911, instead of turning himself in, he chose the most horrifying option. He killed his sons, and then himself. But if that's the whole story, why was one child spared? And why had no one seen any warning signs? Now, another possibility haunts investigators: mental health. Was Jonathon Candy silently struggling? Maybe he wore the mask too well. So well that no one, not friends, not coworkers, not even family, saw the storm building inside him. Men's mental health often hides in plain sight. No tears, no sharing, just silence, distance, irritability. They don't stop loving, they just stop feeling like they belong in the world. The sad truth is, many still see mental illness as weakness, especially if you're a man. The stigma around mental health keeps many men from speaking up. They stay silent, they hold it in, they believe they have to tough it out. But the more they suppress it, the deeper and more dangerous the emotional wounds become. Eventually, some fall into that darkest corner of the mind, where they start to believe the world would be better without them. Worse, they take others with them when they go. Months after the Candy family tragedy, the truth finally surfaced. Behind the cheerful exterior was a quiet crisis. The Candy family was facing serious financial trouble. Overdue bills, maxed out credit cards, mounting debt, and nowhere left to hide it. Jonathon was desperate. As the sole provider for a family of 6, Jonathon was doing everything he could to hold things together, working a part-time job at the Paycom Center. But the hours were inconsistent, the pay was too low, and he simply couldn't keep up anymore. The Paycom Center, a massive arena in downtown Oklahoma City, hosts everything from NBA games and sold-out concerts to community conventions. That's where Jonathon worked, a part-time job, no fixed schedule, no benefits, and nowhere near enough to support a family of 6. He was once surrounded by the roar of Thunder basketball fans, bright concert lights, and the energy of thousands of cheering people. But when the night ended and the lights shut off, Jonathon went home to a pile of unpaid bills. No long-term contract, no insurance, no stability. Some positions at Paycom can pay over $30 an hour, but not his. His role may have been seasonal or per event. There was no security. He smiled when he went to work, but inside, he was barely hanging on. Each paycheck barely covered food, bills, and a sliver of hope. But even that hope was running out. Each paycheck barely covered food, bills, and a sliver of hope. But even that hope was running out. He felt like a failure, useless, disrespected in his own home. He felt he had let down the people he loved the most. Those pages weren't just confessions. They were the silent cries for help from a man who was falling apart. He still told jokes. He still helped others. But inside, he had already lost himself. Family members later recalled the subtle signs. Small changes that once seemed harmless, but now carried chilling weight. Jonathon had grown quieter, more distracted, detached. The tension between him and Lindsay, once just the usual friction of marriage, had turned into deeper cracks. There were no screaming matches, no broken dishes, just a cold, growing distance that filled their home. And now, in hindsight, everyone wonders, were those the early warning signs of an emotional collapse? Financial pressure, especially for fathers who feel they must be the provider, can become a crushing mental burden. But Jonathon never said a word. He stayed silent, gritted his teeth, and kept going. And that silence may have sealed the fate of his entire family. Meanwhile, Lindsay was struggling to hold everything together. She did everything she could to keep their family of 6 from falling apart, but reality kept catching up. School supplies for 4 kids, new clothes, medical bills. Utilities. Everything just kept piling up. The family tried to appear normal. They showed up at events, tried to maintain a sense of stability. But behind the smiles, emotional wounds and financial pressure kept building, until it drowned them in silence. No one knows exactly when the breaking point came, but one thing is clear: that simmering tension became a deadly spark. Loved ones later described the marriage between Jonathon and Lindsay as increasingly strained. In the final months, arguments became more frequent. Not explosive fights, no yelling, no slamming doors. Instead, it was something far scarier: a quiet erosion. Sharp words, long silences, and a creeping emotional exhaustion that settled into the home. This tragedy is heartbreaking, not just because of its brutality, but because it might have been preventable. If someone had seen the signs, if the shadow of mental health stigma hadn't pushed them into silence. But Jonathon didn't ask for help. He held it in until the weight finally crushed him. From a husband trying to hold his family together, he became the man who ended it, ruthlessly and forever. On the other side of this grief was Lindsay Candy. Not just a wife, not just a mother. She was the light in every room she walked into. Those who knew Lindsay said she carried a calm, radiant energy, the kind that made people feel seen, safe, and cared for. One of her childhood friends, Cammy Cruz, posted a tribute on Facebook that touched the entire community. They grew up together, went to the same school, graduated in 2002, and sang in the same church choir. Cammy recalled a memory that struck a chord with many. As kids, she and Lindsay once fell asleep in a treehouse after playing all afternoon. They had no idea that both their parents were panicking, searching everywhere, even calling the police. That night of fear eventually became a warm memory they'd laugh about for years. A carefree moment from a time when Lindsay was just a little girl, full of light and laughter. Cammy described Lindsay as the kind of person you could pick up a conversation with, like no time had passed. A friend whose very presence made you feel at peace, even in silence. She wasn't just loved by her family. Lindsay left a lasting impression on everyone who crossed her path. Her sons adored their mother completely. Friends cherished Lindsay not just for her warmth, but for her laughter, that bright sound they still remember to this day. Her oldest son, Jonathon Candy, was only 18. He had just graduated from Mustang High School in May 2023, a passionate young man with big dreams. Dylan lived for music. He especially loved playing the drums and had been a proud member of his high school marching band. Later, Dylan enrolled at Oklahoma Baptist University, where he joined the school's official marching band, the Bison Brigade. Despite being a freshman, Dylan was given the honor of playing the bass drum, a position usually reserved for seasoned students. But Dylan wasn't just any student. He had talent, drive, and above all else, a big heart. Brian Stackhouse, the director of the athletic band at OBU, said that Dylan was one of those who truly stood out, not just because of his musical talent, but because of the infectious joy he brought with him. Even on the most exhausting days, Dylan was consistently kind, respectful, and full of optimism. One memory Brian says he'll never forget: the day Dylan was selected to perform a solo with the drumline. The boy was so excited he couldn't sit still. That was Dylan, full of energy, all in and fully present. Dylan's bass drum and uniform are now displayed with honor at a memorial on the university campus, a silent tribute to a young man taken too soon. But the pain didn't stop there. Jonathon Candy was only 14, a freshman at Mustang North Middle School. Jonathon was the family's athlete, hardworking, dedicated, and absolutely passionate. Baseball was his world. Coach T.J. Armstrong described Jonathon as the kid with a smile that lit everyone up. But to him, Jonathon was even more than that: a teammate, a close friend, and an irreplaceable source of inspiration. "I just wish this was all a nightmare," Armstrong said through tears. That I could wake up and everything would still be okay. Ethan brought out the best in my own son, Coach Armstrong said. But now, the Armstrong family, like so many others, is still struggling to come to terms with this heartbreaking loss. Ethan's two closest friends, Cooper Armstrong and Wyatt Libby, have been going through a difficult time. They try to understand, try to accept, but how can a child truly grasp the death of their best friend? Lucas Candy was only 12 years old, a bright, energetic boy and a student at Meadowbrook Intermediate School. Lucas loved the lively atmosphere, especially at his older brother's football practices. Wherever people gathered, you could hear Lucas's laughter. Lucas is remembered for his kind heart and pure spirit. But that little boy never had the chance to grow up. His life was cut short far too soon, a light extinguished just as it was beginning to shine its brightest. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of this tragedy isn't what was lost, but what remains. The youngest child of the Candy family is just 10 years old, and in a single night, he lost his mother, his father, and all three of his brothers. Everyone. No more bedtime hugs, no more laughter from down the hall. No one left to call home. At an age when most children are learning multiplication and planning birthday parties, he is now forced to carry a pain no words could ever describe. He's currently living with extended family, receiving close support from social workers, trauma counselors, and mental health professionals. The entire community has come together to surround him with love, care, and hope as he begins the long journey of healing a heart shattered too soon. A GoFundMe campaign has been launched to help the surviving child, covering future education, therapy, and building a life ahead, if such a thing is still possible. The public's response has been overwhelming. Thousands of strangers have stepped up. Donations, letters, and messages have poured in, all carrying the same message. You are not alone. The love and support came from everywhere, from neighbors who once heard laughter echoing from the Candy family's backyard, to complete strangers who had never even met them. Local news station KFOR reported that Jonathon's relatives have finally broken their silence. They spoke of heartbreak, disbelief, and a longing for answers. Answers that may never come. The deaths became a wake-up call. Authorities emphasized, speak up, seek help. Don't let mental storms stay buried behind a smile. Mental health can no longer be kept silent. This case is a brutal reminder. Even the families that seem the happiest might be battling invisible storms behind closed doors. If there's one thing to take from this tragedy, it's this: everyone is going through something, no matter what it looks like on the outside. So, check in on the people you love, be more patient, be kinder, give them time, and most importantly, break the silence. Don't let stigma force anyone to suffer alone in the dark. In Mustang, mental health support groups and counseling services have been deployed to help the community cope with the loss. The Candy family may be gone, but their memory lives on, in every life they touched and in every tear shed in their name. We may never truly understand what happened that night, but we can honor them by choosing kindness and by making sure no one else falls into that same silent despair. As we close this story, we remember Jonathon, Lindsay, Dylan, Ethan, and Lucas, a family once filled with laughter, now replaced by pain and silence. And we send our prayers to the youngest son, the only survivor, a boy who now carries unimaginable loss into a future yet unwritten. What about you? What do you think really happened inside that home? Was it financial pressure, cracks in the marriage, or something even deeper, behind that closed door? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're still with us, don't forget to check out the next video. I think you'll find it worth your time. Thank you for being here.